Warning, this video contains some fucked up ass shit. Viewer discretion is advised.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
With the Dead Space remake on the horizon, I thought it would be a good time to look at the bastard son of this series. Of course, I'm talking about Dead Space 3.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Regarded as a very mediocre entry into the series and a dramatic shift from the exceptionally solid Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2 with the addition of co-op and some garbage microtransactions that no one asked for, Dead Space 3 is a game that I felt initial resentment towards in the past because of some of the drastic changes to the overall gameplay. And while it isn't the worst piece of shit to bear the Dead Space name, it doesn't take much effort to see clear signs that the game was fucked with and strangled into submission by the jaws of the money-hungry Scrooge known as Electronic Arts. And even though I can't exactly say that Dead Space 3 is the worst thing that I've ever touched, you don't need to look very far to see a lot of the flaws in the game. Ones that could have easily been avoided if someone at Visceral would have stood up and said, "No.
No. No!
In addition to that, Dead Space 3 feels like a game that has trouble finding momentum. When you start the game up, it's kind of exciting. You can feel the tension build up, but then the game falls flat with some bullshit design choices and annoying ass shit. But don't worry, we'll get to all that and more. Before going any further, I'll give you all a quick synopsis of some of the shit that happens in the game. You start Dead Space 3 on an icy planet, playing as some fucking random dude who's sent to find some capsule for some asshole named Serrano. The asshole you're playing as is killed by some scumbag who takes the capsule and purges all the data on it before blowing his brains out all over the fucking place. After this, you play as the main broski of the series, Isaac Clarke. Isaac is basically thrown straight into the fire after some EarthGov dickheads named Robert Norton and John Carver force Isaac to help them find returning character Ellie. Isaac then embarks on a journey of massacring Unitologist scumbags. He eventually comes across some fucking Unitologist asshole named Jacob Danik who blows the shit up out of some marker test lab. This causes a necromorph outbreak on the New Horizons lunar colony. Eventually, Isaac and company escape the colony where they eventually meet up with Ellie and some others who find their way to a necromorph-infested ship called the Terra Nova. Isaac and the rest of the scumbags find a ship and head to Tovalantis to find a way to stop the necromorph assholes. Having to keep things exciting, the ship crash lands onto the frigid planet and Isaac is separated from the rest of the assholes and is forced to find his way back to them while navigating the snowy environments. Isaac does eventually reunite with the scumbags from the ship, and the game becomes one of betrayal and bullshit love triangles that serve as a way to help make the player hate every single goddamn character in the game. The gist of it is that Isaac and friends are trying to find a way to stop the stupid-ass markers by using some dickhead named Rosetta's research, and Colt Boy wants to find a way to shove a marker up his fucking asshole so humanity can be reborn. This causes some really bad shit to happen afterwards, so really, what else is there to say?
If he turns off the machine, we're all dead. Her? Us? Everyone.
Just stop! Just stop it! Stop! No! Just stop it!
Well, the story of Dead Space 3 kind of blows. Some of the gameplay isn't really all that much better either, but it is at least worth noting that Dead Space 3 does have some good in it. The weapon crafting adds an extra layer of creativity to the game. It is kind of fun to experiment with different weapons, and since you have the ability to make a shitload of guns with all sorts of attachments, you do get a nice selection. Unfortunately, when you find something that you like or feel super overpowered, it becomes rather trivial to experiment with using other shit. Apart from the gun customization, you also have access to several suits. While these seem to be mostly cosmetic, it is pretty cool to check out new outfits as you unlock them. In addition, the suit can be upgraded using materials found throughout the game and returned from the scavenger bot, which is a little drone thing that you could send out to bring you shit. The rig upgrades include more health, oxygen capacity, armor increase. There's also upgrades for both stasis and kinesis as well, which increase things like damage, range, duration, so on. There's also more areas to explore in the game as well. You have a lot of optional missions that can be done in order to gain upgrades and weapons, as well as find text and audio logs. It helps give the player something extra to do over focusing on the main story, which I don't think is a bad thing.
What's your name, son?
Kaufman, sir? Private Tim Kaufman, sir. Do you like potatoes, Tim?
In regards to the game's atmosphere, Dead Space 3 is a lot tamer than its predecessors as well. Compared to the previous games, Dead Space 3 doesn't quite achieve the same level of creepiness beyond a handful of chapters. The only levels that really stood out were the ones set in outer space. They're more in line with the classic Dead Space games, and the overall atmosphere and enclosed spaces combined with the sounds of the nasty-ass looking necromorphs are still unsettling. Unfortunately, the same level of tension as the previous games isn't really there the whole time because so many sections where it feels like Dead Space 3 was meant to be a generic-ass shooter. Half of the time, it feels like you're dumping ammo into endless waves of necromorphs and those stupid unitologist assholes. It's mostly brain dead. However, I do have to admit that I was playing Dead Space 3 solo, and I can imagine the game feeling a bit more entertaining having a second player. But this isn't even scratching the surface of the game's real issues. If you get tired of relentlessly slaughtering the hell out of necromorphs and unitologist scumbags because EA decided to force Visceral into turning Dead Space 3 into a mindless shooting gallery, don't worry, you have yourself some of the shittiest minigames ever puked into a video game. An excessive number of horrible grapple hook climbing sequences that serve no purpose other than to piss the player off, and the inability to take in the full Dead Space 3 experience because of some content being locked behind co-op. Yes, there's shit in this game that's locked behind cooperative bullshit.
Stupid fucking game.
While this normally wouldn't be an issue, the fact that I couldn't even connect to the Electronic Arts servers made it even more infuriating. It would have been nice to see what kind of backstory shit from John Carver I could have gotten, but unfortunately, I'll never be able to know what that feels like.
Try harder next time.
Other annoying shit includes the amount of fucking DLC in the game. You get suit upgrades, weapon upgrades, bot upgrades, all for a price that's not worth paying. The worst part is that all this shit still costs like $5 each too. Like, why the fuck is it not free after all this time? The game is basically ancient now, so there's no reason for it. It's just fucking greedy.
$1 for me has different value.
In closing, Dead Space 3 is a game that got fucked with way too much by a meddling company that had nothing better to do with their time during the game's development. Certain aspects and ideas were decent, but the game suffered because some of the shittier design choices. It was clear that the intention was to turn this shit into an action game. I mean, damn, I feel like I killed more shit in Dead Space 3 than I did in Dead Space 1 and 2 combined. But even though certain parts of the game wore me the fuck down, I did have more of an appreciation of Dead Space 3 than I thought I would. Sadly, it does pain me knowing that the game probably could have been so much more if it wasn't for greed and trend-chasing bullshit. And on top of that, you have this stupid-ass cliffhanger ending, which leads me to talk about the Awakened downloadable content.
You have got to be shitting me.
Serving as the real grand finale of Dead Space 3, Awakened takes place immediately after the ending of the base game. After finding out they somehow survived all the shit that happened at the ending of Dead Space 3, Isaac and Carver set out to find a way to get back to Earth. A majority of the DLC takes place on the Terra Nova ship from the early game, and most of it consists of Isaac tripping his fucking balls off as the marker's influence constantly causes him to see random ass shit. For the most part, the DLC is actually pretty damn good despite taking less than an hour to actually finish. It's the kind of Dead Space experience that was sorely missed from the main campaign. The atmosphere is creepy as hell, and Isaac's visions create an extra level of anxiety that we didn't really get from the base game. In short, it's actually a really solid add-on. Unfortunately, this shit ends in a cliffhanger as well, and at this point, it's hard to know if we'll ever see any form of actual closure to the series. But overall, Awakened is pretty damn good and feels like how Dead Space 3 probably should have been.
At least we don't have to put up with that shit anymore!
And with that, we come to a close on this chapter. Dead Space is a series that deserves a second chance at life. Hopefully with the remake, we can see that revival come to fruition. Who knows, maybe it'll lead to more games in the series. It would be a major waste otherwise. I honestly have mixed feelings about Electronic Arts, but the Dead Space name is one that I have a fond admiration of. It's a creepy ass franchise with loads of potential for more games to be created, and I honestly want to see more of them. I mean, after all, we need to find out what the fuck happened to Earth, right?
I could use a change of scenery.